Well, thank you, Summer. Takes one to know one, so that means you're pretty amazing yourself too. So thank you for that introduction. My name is Fred. I'm a grateful recovered alcoholic. I always like to start out with a little prayer before I start to facilitate, so that you're hearing God's message and not my mess. Um, God, I lift this meeting up to you tonight. I pray that you bless each person that's in attendance. We are here seeking to build and facilitate our relationship with you. God, please open up our hearts, our minds, our soul, our body. Allow these words to penetrate us and enter us. God, if we have any prayers, please speak through me. Please speak through this meeting. Please speak through these words to allow our prayers to be answered and give us an opportunity to draw closer to you and continue to serve you. Thank you, God. Bless you, God. Praise you, God. Okay. So it's always an honor and a privilege to be able to do service and give away my testimony. And so I'm thankful to the group for having me here. So step 10, I always get into the little verbal jousts with some of the AA debate club. The way that I work my 10 step, it says on the 12 steps on the shade, we continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. So if I read it off the shade, continued to take personal inventory, I'm continuing an inventory that I previously did. So what inventory did I previously do? My written fourth step. And I still write out my 10th step when I'm jammed up, and I'll go into details in a little while how I do that. But the 10th step is a continuation of what we learned in the previous steps. If I have done a thorough fourth step, I get very adept at taking inventory. And this becomes a way of life. The greatest tool I could teach anybody that I'm working with is how to facilitate inventory, how to write it out. My spot check inventory is grossly insufficient. The way that I learn that my spot check inventory is grossly insufficient is that I feel off. I spend so much time analyzing feelings and going to therapy for years. And I remember slamming my fist down and saying feelings are not facts. But what I learned from this program is that feelings are an indicator of my internal condition. So feelings tell me what's going on inside of me. And so I need to be very efficient and proficient at observing my feelings, observing my reaction to life, seeing how when a stimulus occurs, what do I do? Because I learned from my written fourth step, I'm a creature of habit. All right. When I'm stimulated a certain way, I rely upon the same defects of character. I take the action based on the information they present to me. And what happens is I step on the toes of my fellows and they retaliate seemingly without provocation. But what I learned from the inventory is that I've made decisions based on self, which have placed me in a position to be harmed. So if I'm making decisions based off of self, the root of the problem is my decision making. All right. All I could see is the after effect of it. And so I see that you're angry. I see that I'm angry. I see how I react. And so this is why observing this becomes so paramount to my recovery that it must be a way of life. And it's something that, today I hold dear, because whenever I'm off, it has nothing to do with you. It has to do with me and my perception. When I'm spiritually fit, when I'm connected to God, what other people think of me is none of my own damn business. And when I'm spiritually fit, what I think of me is none of my own damn business. I've learned from my inventory that I'm not a good judge of character. I judge you harshly and I judge myself even more harshly. So this is why I need to separate that emotional attachment. This is why I need that barrier, but I need to see truth in order for that to happen. And that's why a thorough inventory, whether it's my fourth step, whether it's my 10th step, is essential. All right. This becomes an art form, and it's something that I perfect through action, through continuous action. And so My chief activators, the people that rub me the wrong way, they become my greatest teachers. All right. So the people in your life that piss you off, that upset you, that bother you, that disturb your peace, these are the people that are going to become your greatest teachers, because it forces me to use my tools. It forces me to use my program. It forces me to dive into this step work. And so, um, I know my wife is on here, I believe, and it's being recorded, but she's the beneficiary of probably the most of my written inventory, and that's the reason why we're still married today. Yes, it is. It's on step 10. And because when I'm jammed up, I need to write about it, because otherwise, what she is going to see is raw emotion and not truth. And this program tells me I need to present truth. My raw emotion is based off of, um, usually it's rage, it's anger. This is the emotion I tap into most often and most easily. And I need to always, come from love. I can't do that if I don't see the truth. And so this is why inventory is so effective, especially written inventory. There's something magical about putting pen to paper. It bypasses my conscious mind, which my conscious mind is filled with my belief systems that are built off of self. What is good for me? What will keep me from being harmed? What will keep me out of fear? What will prevent me from feeling emotional pain? All right. And so my defense mechanisms tell me lie, cheat, steal, do whatever in order to fulfill this. When I put pen to paper, I'm able to bypass this and go into my conscious mind and see truth on a deeper level. I've had great, we talk about peeling the onion, and by writing it out and by putting pen to paper, um, God has taken me much further down the rabbit hole than I ever could go on my own, even in therapy, even going through guided meditations, even in significant work with in other areas outside of AA. Whenever I do written inventory, that's where I see truth. All right. And so with that being said, I just wanted to, well, I prayed and came into this without any specific intention. And so I feel like God led me down on this tangent for a reason, to emphasize and re-emphasize and smash home how essential it is to keep doing inventory. For me, I can't, speak for anybody else, but for me, I need to keep writing it out. In the 12 and 12, when they talk about step 10, and they refer to the original founders doing an annual or semi-annual house cleaning. So to me, this means that they're writing out their 10 step as they would their fourth step. Because my spot check inventory is inefficient, because my nightly review is inefficient, I don't do it every night. Um, I get jammed up, and by observing my feelings, I see how I'm reacting to stimulus, to life situations. I see that I'm not reacting as I normally would. And then I pray. And if God does not remove that resentment, it means God wants me to write it out. So I'm going to go through what it says in the big book about step 10. We're going to go through line by line. And then I'm going to explain my process a little bit deeper. And we'll see where God takes us on this journey. Right now, I'm feeling connected, so I trust that whatever comes through me is meant for somebody here. If you have questions about the 10 step, if you're confused, if you're unsure, this is a process. We grow by experience. That's what I love about the spiritual nature of this program. There's no right or wrong, there just is. And so by me applying what I learn, and even going above and beyond and trying new ways, this is how I learn my process, what works for me. What works for me may not work for you, but everything that I do is based on the instructions that are written out in this book. And so if you do have your book and you do want to follow along, we're looking at page 84. And so once we go through step 9 and we have those amazing 9th step promises, And they give us the paragraph. They say, are these extravagant promises? We think not. And that word extravagant, means extreme or excessive. And it may sound extreme or excessive when I first go through this. But then when I start to see them work in my life, I'm like, wow, nothing is excessive in God's world. All right. God promises us abundance. And so whatever I give, I get back in abundance. And so when I give spirituality, when I come from love, I get that back in abundance. And so it says here that, these are not extravagant promises. We think not. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly and sometimes slowly. And then there's a promise, but every promise in this book has a catch. The promises, they will always materialize, not sometimes, not part of the time. They will always materialize, but the catch is I have to work for them. All right. And so if I have to work for them, that means there's action I need to take. All right. And so all these promises lead us into the very next sentence. It says, this thought brings us to step 10. So what thought are they referring to? The thought that all these promises will actually come together in my life if I follow these instructions. All right. And so moving forward into step 10 with this thought in mind, it says it suggests that we continue to take personal inventory. All right. So when did I continue, or when did I first take personal inventory? In my written fourth step. All right. And so I need to now continue what I learned from that. And there's that word and. All right. So now this is a separate component to this. I continue to take personal inventory, and I continue to set right any new mistakes as we go along. All right. So it's promising me that I will be making new mistakes. How do I learn? I learn from my mistakes. All right. I used to think that because I was a perfectionist, I could not make mistakes, that there was something wrong with me or deficient or terrible with me if I made mistakes. I felt like I was the mistake. And step 10 tells me that I'm supposed to make mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes because this is how I learn. All right. And so reflecting over my day becomes a constructive process. Think about that word constructive. Construct means to build. All right. When I'm looking at my day through Fred's eyes, it's destructive. I'm beating myself up. I can't believe I did this again. I can't believe I screwed up. I did this wrong. I did that wrong. Okay. Nothing positive can come from that. That's just how I'm hardwired, is to be negative. We agnostics tells me I can't see the forest because I'm focused on the ugliness of some of its trees. I can't see the beauty of the forest. I'm hardwired to think negatively. And so inventory is meant to be a constructive process. So if I construct a house, I'm building a house. All right. We're constructing. Remember, we are reborn. God's given us a brand new life. I'm constructing this life. So I'm continuing to take personal inventory and set right any new mistakes as I go along. So it's okay to make mistakes. Okay. Part of this process is about forgiving myself when I make mistakes. This shows God that I'm willing to grow. I'm not holding on to this old idea that I have to be perfect. All right. Next sentence. We vigorously commenced this way of living as we cleaned up the past. All right. That word vigorously sounds kind of familiar, right? Maybe you guys remember it. We first heard that word, where was it? I think it was on page 63? Yes. After the third step, it says we launched out on a course of vigorous action, the first step of which is a personal house cleaning, which many of us never attempted. All right. So my original fourth step needs to be vigorous. This is a house cleaning. Same thing with my written 10 step. It says I'm vigorously commencing this way of living. So the same vigorousness, if that's a word, that I used to dive into my fourth step to get down to causes and conditions to see the truth about my stock and trade, I need to apply that same level of intensity, that same fervor, that same desire to get well into my 10th step. All right. And so we vigorously commenced this way of living as we cleaned up the past. So what is cleaning up the past? Doing my 9-step amends. All right. So I don't wait until I finish my amends or get, halfway through my amends. No, once I go through the process of the amends and I set everything up, we dive right into step 10. I had someone over my house yesterday, taking her through step 9 and going over the instructions about it. And, she's here tonight because I said, all right, tomorrow we're going to start step 10. We don't wait. So vigorously commencing this way of living, the spiritual way of living, and taking constant inventory as we make amends. Why? Because we have entered the world of the spirit. Now, think about it. We're on page 84 of the big book. We've read 84 pages. We've read the doctor's opinion. We've read the prefaces. We've done a whole lot of action, and we are just now entering the world of the spirit. All right, think about that. So AA, I always think of it like this. AA gives me the building blocks. All right. This is like spiritual kindergarten. What do we learn in kindergarten? We learn ABCs, 1, 2, 3. We learn how to share. We learn how to speak. We learn how to do a few things for ourselves. All right. Same thing with AA. This is giving me the building blocks. And now I take what I learn in here and go out into the real world, because that's what's going to be my greatest teacher. It's easy for me to be spiritual Fred in an AA meeting. I know this book very, very well. I have a very comprehensive knowledge of this book. I could sound amazing if I wanted to, but if I'm not taking the action as it's outlined, I'm just as liable as the next person to relapse or to become unspiritually fit. And so the tools that I learned from this, I now bring into the real world, and that's where my tools get battle tested. Okay, that's where I learn how to properly use my 10-step. So I've entered the world of the spirit. We've only now entered it. My next function, and you'll often hear in AA 10, 11, 12, it's the maintenance steps. Well, if I'm suffering from a progressive disease, that means my disease is constantly getting worse, never better. So my recovery must also be progressive. Because if I'm just maintaining, if I'm standing still, but my disease is progressing and getting worse, well, then guess what? I'm still going backwards. All right. So my next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. So it's more than just maintenance. It's about maintaining what I previously have done, but grow on top of this. Now, we just talked about that word construction. With construction, we grow. All right. You have a foundation, you build a house, you build the second story, you keep adding to it, you're growing it. Same thing with my recovery. Everything that I've learned previously through my trial and error, through my experiences, through my written 4th step, now through my amends, helps me to grow in my 10 steps. So my next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. All right. Think about those words. Understanding. All right. We attend big book studies so that we can understand the information in this book. All right. What is effectiveness? Effectiveness comes from action. So I need to understand this and apply this. All right. So how do I do this? I practice life. All right. I need to have affairs. I need to go out and have life situations. I need to have situations with my job, with my family, in the real world, dealing with unspiritually fit people, dealing with people that don't have the same tools that I do, dealing with people that are trying their best to deal with life on life terms, but they don't have access to the same power I do, or they don't have the same instructions or the same need to. All right. So I need to grow in understanding and effectiveness. So in school early on, we're taught practice makes perfect. Well, what I learned through real life application is that practice only makes progress. And remember, we talk about progress, not perfection. So how do I make progress? By practicing. How do I practice? By taking these principles and applying them. By, sometimes it's 3 steps forward and 2 steps back, and that's okay. because I'm learning from my experiences. And so it warns me this is not an overnight matter. If you're an alcoholic like me, I want this yesterday. I want the freedom from bondage of self, to be here now and to never leave me. All right. I want this connection that I have, this feeling, this pink cloud to never leave me. But this is an overnight matter. And every single day is a self contained unit of 24 hours that I have to experiment, to grow, to learn by using these instructions. All right. And so every day I could grow, or every day I could go backwards. It's that black and white with me. So now, how long do I do my 10 step? It says it should continue for our lifetime. All right. That's a scary thought. Well, let's keep it in today. Okay. So for today, I need to practice my 10 step. All right. So now, how do I do this? It says continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. All right. So if I've done a thorough fourth step, and my first 5 years, my first 5 years, I had 5 different sponsors. I was never fired. I never fired anyone. I found people that I wanted what they had, people that had time, that loved their God, that loved AA. And I asked them, take me through the work from start to finish. Show me what you do. And they did. And as soon as they had given me everything that they had, I found somebody else. And this is how I continued to grow. This is how my process grew. This is how my understanding of the big book grew. And this is part of the way how my fourth step, which led to my written 10 step, grew, is by seeking people out that, and asking them what they did. Now, there were people with 20, 30 years that I spoke to that were miserable, that, hated life and were judgmental. And, I didn't want what they had. But there were people that were diagnosed with cancer, that were going through chemo, that had the biggest smile on their face and loved God and was grateful for every day and was grateful for an opportunity to bear witness and just wanted to talk and just wanted to share about God. Those are the people that I sought out, because if you can be that close to God facing that adversity, I want what you have. What is your secret? And they all showed me what they did. And the common thread with each person, written inventory. So when these crop up, so when what crops up? When selfishness crops up, when dishonesty crops up, when resentment crops up, or fear, does it say we ask our sponsor to remove it? No. Does it say we go to the meeting and bitch about it? No. It says we ask God at once to remove them. All right. That word ask means to pray. So this is a very simple prayer. All right. At any point in the day, I'm angry, I'm afraid, I'm aware that I'm not feeling well. God, please remove this feeling, because I can't be helpful to anybody if I'm caught up in self. God, please help me to learn from this experience. God, please help me to overcome this. Sometimes I'm in the heat of work. The only word I can get out is God. And that's a prayer. There's power in God's name. And so just by saying that, it separates me from that immediate moment. All right. Now it gives me some instruction. We discuss them. So I discuss my selfishness, my dishonesty, my resentment, and my fear with someone immediately, and make amends quickly if I have harmed anyone. All right. So in that moment, I don't wait to speak to my sponsor. I quickly make an amends. I'm acting out of fear. I'm sorry I said that to you. I know I upset you. I promise to try not to repeat that. Is there anything I could do to make this right? All right. Then it says we resolutely turned our thoughts to someone we can help. This is a very important sentence. All right. Turning my thoughts to someone I could help. So there's times I'm at work and I work with very toxic people, and I'm on a very challenging, difficult phone call. And I find myself getting very angry, very resentful, pissed off, whatever the emotion is. it's to an extreme, and I can't stop to pray or talk to someone. So what do? I can resolutely turn my thoughts to someone I can help. An example of that, I'll just say, okay, I do most of the cooking in my house. In the moment, in the heat of the moment, I'll stop and say, okay, you know what? What could I make my wife and my son for dinner tonight? What could I cook or prepare that they like? What do we have in the house? Or can I go out after work and go get something for them? All right. I have now, in that moment, changed the focus from myself to somebody else. The simple action that I took is just resolutely turning my thoughts to somebody else. All right. I had a sponsee who went to a foreign country and worked there for a year. And there was terrible internet access. He couldn't call. There were very few meetings. And we talked about this line, and he said this sentence actually saved him, because when he was in bad spots overseas, he would think of people, he would think of his family. He wasn't speaking to them, but just by thinking of others and potentially putting their needs first, that takes me out of me in that moment. So this is part of my 10 step, resolutely turning my thoughts to someone I could help. It doesn't mean I have to be helpful to them in that moment. It doesn't mean I'm in a position where I could take action, but just by thinking of them and thinking of what I could do for that person takes me out of me, reduces my emotional attachment to whatever outcome is not going my way, and allows me to calm down. And so it brings me, all of this that we just read brings me to that last sentence: love and tolerance of others is our code. All right. So I learn to accept people for who they are. Um, Love and tolerance of others is not part of my genetic makeup. There's a lot of people that I held judgments against for many, many years. Being free of this is not normal for me. So coming from love and tolerance is a byproduct of being spiritually awake. I can't demonstrate love towards my enemies um, until I am spiritually awake. And so I accept people for who they are. So this one first paragraph in step 10, tons of information. All right. Next, it's going to lead us to the promises. All right. We're going to go through this sentence by sentence. We have ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. All right. So now this becomes a very powerful litmus test in our recovery. All right. Ask yourself right now, do you feel like you're fighting anything or anyone or the desire to drink? All right. If I'm at odds with myself or with somebody else and I'm not right with the world, that means I'm not receiving the 10-step promise. If I'm not receiving the 10-step promise, it means I'm not spiritually connected. If I'm not spiritually connected, it means I better take action very soon in order to get connected. All right. So I work this process backwards based on the promise. If I'm fighting something or somebody or alcohol, I'm not spiritually fit. I need to take action. All right. Recovery is very much like baking a cake. I have the right ingredients, the right quantity of it, and the right order of when I add the ingredients. If I do it correctly, the cake will always taste the same. And so, have I ceased fighting anything or anybody, even alcohol? And it says, for by this time, sanity will have returned. So remember, sanity is wholeness or wellness of mind, the ability to make proper choices. Um, the doctor's opinion tells us, after a period of time, the alcoholic can't differentiate true from the false. It also tells me that I'm maladjusted to life. I make bad choices to life. If I'm sane, I'm now making good choices to life. What's a good choice to life? Whenever I'm angry, following these instructions in that previous paragraph I just read, turning my thoughts to somebody I could be helpful to. All right. This is all a litmus test of, am I sane? Am I spiritually connected? We will seldom be interested in liquor. If tempted, we recoil from it as if from a hot flame. We react sanely and normally, and we find that this has happened automatically. All right. And so this is my reaction to liquor. It says, we will see that our new attitude toward liquor has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. All right. So, excuse me. So, when I see this word new in the big book, it means it's a gift from God. Like the 9 step promises, they talked about a new freedom and a new happiness. All right. So now they're talking about a new attitude. All right. So, what is this new attitude towards liquor? It says that I react normally, sanely around it, that it happens automatically, that it's not from any thought or effort on my part. So if it's not coming from me, if there's no thought or effort on my part, it must be coming from something outside of me. And so this is why I can't rely upon me to not drink. Um, I hear people in meetings say, I choose not to drink today. I lost the power of choice. Step one tells me, step one doesn't tell me I can't drink. Step one promises me that I will drink again. I've lost power, choice, and control. All right. I need the choice to be removed so that if alcohol is in front of me, there's no thought process involved with regard to it. And that's what the 10-step promise is saying. All right. My new attitude toward liquor has been given without any thought or effort. It just comes. That is the miracle of it. We are not fighting it, neither are we avoiding temptation. We feel as though we have been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. Okay, here's another litmus test. Ask yourself a question right now in this moment. Do you feel like you're in a position of neutrality? Do you feel safe and protected right now in this moment? Okay, if you do, you're receiving the grace of God. I'm receiving the benefit of the 10-step promise. If I'm not feeling neutral, if I'm not feeling safe and protected, I'm not receiving the 10-step promise. I'm not spiritually fit. I need to see what's blocking me. Again, for me, written inventory shows me what's blocking me. So it says, we have not even sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed. Now, I love this. I'm not choosing to not drink. The alcohol problem has been removed. Okay. I remember when my wife and I moved into our house in 2016, and the realtor who sold us the house gave us a bottle of vodka as a thank you gift. Our neighbor came by with a bottle of wine, and the previous homeowners left us a case of beer in the fridge. And I'm thinking, where are all these people when I drank? No one offered me free alcohol when I drank. Now that I'm recovered, no one does. And so we had the bottle of wine and the bottle of vodka. I said, all right, we'll give it to my in-laws when we see them. And it's a couple of weeks later, and I'm asking my wife, have you seen the bottle? And she's like, I'm not really sure. And we're looking for it. And finally, I find it. It's on the kitchen counter. All right. It was in front of us for weeks. And I looked right through it. I never saw it. Why? Because of the 10-step promise. All right. I don't have to avoid alcohol. When Bill stayed with Dr. Bob, he left an open bottle of alcohol. Dr. Bob's wife was not happy about that. And Bill was saying, we can't shield alcoholics. Either God removes the problem or he doesn't. It becomes that black and white and that simple. So the promise says, instead, the problem has been removed. When my alcohol problem was removed, I can be around alcohol. I could be around people that are drinking. I don't like the smell of it. I don't like the energy in the air when I'm around drunk people. But I could be around it and I'm free. My 10-step promises this to me. The problem has been removed. I don't have to make a choice. So it does not exist for us. We are neither cocky nor are we afraid. All right. So am I afraid about being around alcohol? Again, there's another litmus test. So it says, this is our experience. This is how we react. Again, this is a promise, and the promise has a catch. This is how we react. The catch is I need to stay in fit spiritual condition. All right. So think about losing weight, going to the gym, trying to put on muscle. All right. It's something we need to do on a continuous basis in order to become physically fit. If I want to run a marathon, or if I even want to walk a couple miles, I need to start practicing a little bit every day, every couple of days, and build myself up. If I try to do it all in one day, I'm going to fall short. I'm going to have a heart attack. All right. Same thing with spiritual growth. It's a little bit each and every day. So, as we read, practice does not make perfect, practice makes progress. All right. So, now, next paragraph. It is easy to let up on the spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. So, my laurels is a prior accomplishment, like, let's say, my first fourth step, or my old fourth step, or yesterday's inventory, or yesterday's prayer, or yesterday's nightly review, or the kindly Samaritan, the kindly deed that I did as a good Samaritan last week. So it's easy to let up on the spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. It's easy for me to rest on my laurels because, laziness is a chief defect. I don't want to always have to take the lead. I don't want to always have to do this. But guess what? If I want freedom from bondage of self, I always have to take action. It says we are headed for trouble. If we do, for alcohol is a subtle foe. We are not cured of alcoholism. All right. So I introduced myself at the beginning of this meeting as a grateful, recovered alcoholic. All right. I have not recovered from the allergy of alcoholism. What I've recovered from is that seemingly hopeless state of mind and body, which precedes the first drink. All right. I don't have, my mind no longer tells me or tries to convince me that I can control my drinking or that a drink will make it better. Because I have recovered. So I'm aware that I'm not cured of alcoholism. I have to believe that if I intentionally ingest alcohol of any form, whether it's dry alcohol or alcohol in pill form or alcohol in a bottle, that I'm going to have an allergic reaction. All right. So I'm not cured of alcoholism. What I have, though, is recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. And what does that look like? It says what we really have is a daily reprieve, contingent. So the daily reprieve is a promise that I will receive this, but it's contingent. Here's the catch: maintaining, and I'm going to also ad lib in, growing my spiritual condition. All right. Bill Story, one of my favorite lines. If the alcoholic fails to perfect and enlarge his spiritual life through sacrifice and working with others, he's surely not to survive the trials and low spots ahead. So he's promising us there's going to be trials and low spots ahead. And he's also promising us we're not going to be able to survive it unless we seek to perfect and enlarge our spiritual life. So my job is to always grow my relationship with God. All right. So that means I need to maintain and grow my spiritual condition. It says here, every day is a day when we must carry the vision of God's will into all of our activities. All right. So last chapter in this book, A Vision for You. What is God's vision for me? God's vision for me is to carry his will into all of my activities, not some of them, all of my activities. So that means not just turning over my drinking and my drugging to God. That means my finances, my dating life, my sex life, my marriage, my family, everything. All right. It's easy for me to say, oh, God, take the drinking and the drugging. That's an issue. But, I could live on self-willed on other areas of my life. No, this is all or nothing. The spiritual life is not a theory. We have to live it. And so carry God's vision into all my activities. That means, even in my job, even when I'm sitting in traffic and there's cars cutting me off and I have somewhere to get to, and just as important as well, carrying God's vision into all those activities, patience and tolerance of other people's right to exist and other people's right to be wrong. All right. Other people have the right to breathe the same air that I do, to make mistakes. It's part of their process, and I need to allow them their journey. It's easier said than done, but when I'm living this way of life and I'm spiritually connected, again, what I think about other people is none of my own damn business. And what I think about myself and what other people think of me is none of my own damn business. So I lose my emotional attachment to that. So it gives me a prayer. How could I best serve thee? Thy will not mine, be done. All right. These are thoughts which must go with us for part of the day. By the time I'm in a meeting, no. These are thoughts which must go with us constantly. All right. So if I'm conscious, if I'm awake and I'm aware, I need to bring God's will into every aspect of my day. When I do, it says we can exercise our willpower along this line all we wish. It is the proper use of the will. All right. And so, this is a lifetime exercise in practicing and improving my 10 step. So we get very efficient and proficient in surrendering, in observing how we react, and then taking a different reaction than what a self-predicated mindset tells me to do. And so it says much has been said about receiving strength, inspiration, and direction from him who has all knowledge and power. Okay. So think about that: strength, inspiration, and direction. So the power, knowledge of God's will, and the power to carry it out. So if God has all knowledge and all power, this is why I need to seek it out. I want to tap into God's omnipotent power, God's knowledge, and relying upon him. Okay. It says if we have carefully followed directions. So there's that word carefully. So this step study that we're doing tonight, and it's funny, I was convinced I'm not going to be able to talk for the full length of time, and then sure enough, God has me going through this very, very, piece by piece. This book does not mince words. Every word has significant meaning. Every word is placed here for a very specific reason. So in this sentence, that word carefully. So am I carefully following the directions as they're outlined in step 10, or am I skimping over them? Am I saying yes, yes, and just checking off mental boxes? No. Or am I going through it and saying, this is something I'm doing, this is something I'm not doing, this is something I have to do, this is something I can improve on? So if we have carefully followed directions, we have begun to sense the flow of his spirit into us. So remember, we've just now entered the world of the spirit. So now we are feeling the flow of God's power into us. It says, to some extent, we have become God conscious. We have begun to develop this vital sixth sense, but we must go further, and that means more action. Okay, so that word vital means necessary for life. Okay, so a sixth sense. What is a sixth sense? Try saying those two words 10 times fast. Sixth sense, sixth sense. So, we have our five senses that, again, we learn these through action. So we have sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell. All right. And so the vitals, and those are all necessary for us to interact with our environment. So what's the vital sixth sense? It's the God consciousness. All right. It's the opposite of selfish and self-centered. It's relying upon this God consciousness. And so, the direct result of this is that we have ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. And when we are exposed to alcohol, we recoil as if from a hot flame. I was a few years into recovery and I had made great progress, and my mind was using my written inventory against me. My mind was saying, you had a lot of things going on in your life, so of course it makes sense that you would have drank heavily to try to numb these feelings and anesthetize and medicate. And you were going through a phase and you were trying everything new. But you know what? Now from this inventory, you have your stuff together. You're in a good place. You don't use like all these people you're hearing about in meetings. You never got arrested. You never got a DWI. Granted, I drove drunk hundreds of times. You never injected, drugs. Maybe you're not as bad as other people. All right. And so my mind is trying to plant a seed and trying to use my knowledge of the book against me. And so thankfully, my God has a sense of humor. And I was at a fashion party, helping out a friend of mine who was a makeup artist. And so afterwards, they were serving desserts, and I go and I grab a red velvet cupcake. I take a bite. It's okay. Um, I grab another cupcake. This was the most amazing cupcake I've ever had in my entire life. It just exploded in my mouth, and my mind is saying, "Oh my God, I need more of this cupcake. This is a freaking amazing cupcake." And I'm salivating like Pavlov's dog, looking at all these desserts, looking for the same cupcake. And the woman behind the counter came over. She goes, "You like that one, right?" I was like, "Oh my God, this is so good. What kind of cupcake is this?" And she said, "Well, it's a chocolate cupcake, but the chocolate chips I made with espresso vodka." And so, and instantly I like literally my hand just like peeled back. Um, but think about that for a second, because it took me a minute in there, after the shock wore off. All right. My brain did not know that there was alcohol in this cupcake. My brain did not I didn't consciously ingest alcohol, but yet I had a completely abnormal and allergic reaction to alcohol. So as soon as I bit into this, and whether it was the salivary glands in my mouth or it hitting my stomach, my body recognized the induction of alcohol and instantly sent a message to my brain saying, "I freaking need more." And so I could look at it and laugh and say, okay, that's not a normal reaction. So not only am I powerless over the first drink, I'm also powerless over the first cupcake. But you know, again, thank God for that 10-step promise, because I reacted as if from a hot flame. And I could see that my body metabolizes alcohol differently. And without even knowing it, um, you know, this 10-step promise kicked in, because I was not drinking intentionally, obviously. So now, I know that we will be wrapping up in a few minutes, but the way that I write out my fourth step, it's very deep. Um, I do an extended third column, and there's a lot of prayer. All right. Inventory is not meant to be an academic process. It's not about sitting down and trying to think of who I've harmed and what have I done. That's how I lived in resentment for so many years, is refeeling these painful feelings. Inventory is meant to be a spiritual process, meaning I'm meant to grow closer to my God by doing inventory. And so I pray for God, to reveal which names I need to list. And then I say a prayer before I do inventory. God, please allow me to see what you would have me see in the light you would have me see it, free from morbid reflection, fear, obsessive guilt, or dishonesty. Thy will be done. Why? Because I want the way that I look at my day is destructive. The way that I look at me is destructive. I can't believe I did this again. I'm a screw up. I'm a piece of crap. I'm never going to amount to anything. God would have me look at every one of these situations as learning experiences and growth steps. And so when I'm looking at it through God's pair of glasses, I could see things from a third party. I'm no longer playing that tape in my mind and feeling the pain. Instead, I'm looking at it and I could see that other people are perhaps spiritually sick just like me. And so I'll end with this, is that um, the way that I integrate my 10 step directly with God is that, before we write out the fourth column in the fourth step, it gives us prayers. And so for me, the prayer that I write out for every single written inventory, whether it's a fourth step, a 10 step, God, please allow me to see that so and so is a child of God and perhaps spiritually sick just like me. God, please allow me to grant them the same patience, tolerance, and pity I would grant a sick friend. God, please save me from being angry. Thy will be done. So on any given day, whether it's a colleague, a family member, somebody on the road, a nameless person, somebody can piss me off. Somebody can rent space in my head. All right. I say that prayer, the one that I just recited. I'll say that prayer. 9 times out of 10, God removes it instantly. All right. That prayer becomes such a strong working part of my arsenal because I write it out every time I do inventory. And so the prayer becomes very effective. So God will, 9 times out of 10, he'll remove that resentment. The times that God does not remove the resentment is intentional, because then God wants me to put pen to paper and write out this resentment, because I'm going to learn from it. All right. And so every one of these experiences can be a learning experience. I could grow from it. So, very simply, someone rents space in my head. I use that prayer. God either removes the resentment or he doesn't. All right. If he doesn't, there's a reason for it. He wants me to learn from this experience. And I put pen to paper and I write it out, and I see truth, and I get a corrective measure, and I'm shown exactly what step to take. And the end result is every one of these promises come true. And so, amazing. I walked into this meeting with some prejudice that, how am I going to speak about this for an hour? And the fact is, I could keep going on and on. But I'm not going to, because that would be making it about me. But I, once again, I just want to thank the group for having me here. Everyone who attended, especially I see a lot of our friends from overseas and from the UK, and I know it's late for you guys, so always appreciate you guys coming out to join us. And I hope and pray that God has opened up your heart to hear a message tonight. With that, that's enough out of me. My name is Fred. I'm a grateful recovered alcoholic. Thank you.